The Little Match Girl. It was a bitterly cold evening. Flurries of snow filled the sky and covered the darkening village below this New Year's Eve.
Oh, my sweet little child, I am so sorry I have to send you out into the frozen darkness to sell these matches this evening. But, as you can see, I cannot walk because I'm sick.
Yes, Grandma, I understand.
And remember, sweetheart, with the money you make from selling these matches, we can eat tonight. Otherwise, we will be forced to try and sleep with our stomachs empty. Now go, my child.
Don't worry, Grandma. I will sell all the matches, and we'll be sure to bring home lots of food as well. Goodbye.
In this chilling darkness, there wisped along the cobblestone streets a poor little girl who was nearly 8 years old and an orphan. She had a cap to warm her head, and her clothes were all threadbare and nearly worn through in places. She walked with calloused and wounded bare feet, for she had no shoes. She stood on the corner, clinging hopefully to the matchboxes which she held in her thin, bare hands. People bustled all about her, busy with Christmas shopping, not even giving a glance to the poor little child.
Sweetie, do you like what I bought you in that toy store?
Oh, yes, Mother. The doll is pretty. Thank you. And the dress is so lovely.
The little match girl's eyes filled with tears. But there was no time to cry, for she must sell some matches so she and her grandmother can have dinner that evening. So she bravely wiped the grief from her eyes and said to the woman,
Lady, would you like to buy some matches, please? They're very sturdy and nice.
No, I don't need matches. Get away from my daughter. I don't know why they let these kinds of people on streets to mingle among decent people such as ourselves.
Look at her dress, Mother. It's so old. I'm sorry, but these are the only clothes I have.
It's not my problem. And besides, I don't have money. Even if I did, I wouldn't buy matches. So get away and leave us alone.
But they're only 1 penny each.
Don't you understand? I don't want it. Now go away, or I will call the police.
The little match girl trembles. Snow begins to fall once more as she presses on with her quest to try and sell matches to people passing by.
Ma'am, please, would you like to buy some matches? They're magical, you know. When you light one, all your wishes will come true.
That's nonsense. Those are fairy tales.
But ma'am, please buy at least one. Its light will give you the most wonderful Christmas.
I told you. No, I don't need one.
It is true. Each one is different.
I don't want matches today. Why don't you go home? It's a cold night.
I can't, ma'am. I don't have parents, and my grandma is very sick. I don't have any money left to buy medicine or food for her.
I do wish I could help you, my dear, but I do not have enough money to spare. Maybe somebody else will buy some from you.
Maybe.
The little match girl's spirits began to sink as the cold winds became stronger and swirled round about her frail form, seeming to snatch at her with its icy claws. With a final blast of determination, the little match girl continued to offer her wares, but to no avail. Finally, feeling alone and defeated, she slumps down upon the sidewalk, shivering uncontrollably from the cold.
My hands and feet feel like blocks of ice. I will light one of my trusty matches just to warm my fingers a little.
The poor little match girl's hands were shivering so greatly that she was unable to light a match. After some time and great effort, she lights up one single match. And to her surprise, the matchstick transformed into an iron stove, and the little girl soon began to feel warm. She put her tiny icicle-like fingers closer to the stove. She was very happy. But a few moments later, a snowflake dropped right on her matchstick and snuffed it out. So she stood up and once again tried to sell her matches. Alas, not a single match had been sold thus far. Suddenly, she heard a voice.
Hi there, little girl. What do you have there to sell?
I sell matches. Would you like to buy one?
As soon as she turned towards the voice, she sees an old homeless woman standing in a corner with her skinny dog. They both are shivering with cold.
Don't you see that I am as poor as you?
Oh, sorry. I have to sell these matches to get some food for my grandma.
Poor girl. Well, will you please take care of my dog for me? It will only be here for a little while. I must go and find some food. Perhaps I can bring some food for you too.
Well, at least I can get some food from my grandma. But please come soon, as I have to get her medicine too.
The little match girl agreed to watch after the dog, and the old woman left with a promise to return as quickly as she could. She held the dog's leash as he sat quietly on the corner. In a while, the poor girl started shivering again. She thought for a moment and took out the matchbox and burnt it against the wall. To her surprise, she sees a table full of wonderful things to eat, with turkey, lamb, goose, fish, apples, and cakes.
Oh, I wish I could eat it all. I feel so peaceful in this place.
As soon as she reached for a piece of cake, the flame of the matchstick went out, and everything vanished. She was very disappointed. She looked up towards the sky and prayed.
Oh Lord, please take me out of this sadness. I'm so hungry and miserable. Please help me.
Just then, she saw a star falling from the heavens, and she recalled something that her grandma had told her.
Grandma says when a star falls, someone dies. My grandma is very sick. Does it mean that I lost my grandma? Oh, she loved me more than anyone else in the whole world.
She took out another matchstick and lit it. She was surprised to see her grandmother standing in front of her.
Oh, Grandma, is that you?
Yes, child. I am here for you.
The little match girl was pleased to see her grandma, but was rather alarmed, for she could see that her grandma was floating in the air.
Don't be afraid, my child. I am safe and well now. You don't have to worry about me anymore.
The little match girl opens her mouth to tell her grandma how hard she tried to sell the matchsticks. Then the flame of the matchstick went out, once again, and her grandma disappeared. This time, the poor child lights all of her matchsticks at once, as she didn't want her grandma to disappear again. And the glow was so bright, it was as sunlight. Her grandma reappears and gazed lovingly at the little match girl, smiling.
Grandma, I'm so scared. I don't want to stay here anymore. Please, take me with you.
Yes, dear. I will take you with me. Give me your hand.
Grandmother took the little match girl's hand, then lifted her in her arms. They both started soaring upward to the sky.
How are you feeling now, my sweet angel?
Oh, Grandma, now I feel wonderful. I don't feel hungry or cold anymore. I feel as light as a feather.
Grandma smiled again, and they both flew to heaven. And in that same moment, a little star fell from the sky. The next day, when the sun was rising up again, the little match girl was sitting on the ground with all the burnt matches in her hand, and a contented smile resting on her face. Many people looked on at the little match girl lying lifeless upon the sidewalk. They all grieved for the loss of the bright light that her life was to them. The end. The Princess of Spring. Once upon a time, a moon giant named Moonlo was strolling through the barren lands of the moon when he suddenly caught sight of the beautiful giantess of Earth called Terra. Moonlo at once fell in love with her. He slid down a moonbeam and landed on Earth. He knelt in front of her, holding a tree-like flower, and he proposed to her. Terra was very impressed with him. She smiled. Moonlo had won her over. Moonlo built her a wonderful palace by the great river. It was the most beautiful palace on Earth. Terra was very happy. Soon, the baby of Terra and Moonlo was born. The giant hermit came to bless her and announce the baby's name, Princess Spring. Terra and Moonlo were very happy. As the beautiful Princess Spring grew older, many suitors visited, but she favored none of them. She was so happy living in her lovely palace with her dear mother. One day, Sunshine, the sun giant, came to encourage her. When Princess Spring saw him, she was astounded, as Sunshine was the most handsome man that she had ever seen.
Hey there, you beautiful Princess Spring. My name is Sunshine, and I have come to you to ask for your hand in marriage.
Princess Spring at once became sad.
Oh, mighty handsome Sunshine, I cannot leave my mother because I love her more than anyone else. I am sorry.
Sunshine left. The next day, when the sun rose, Sunshine came back to the palace again.
Oh, beautiful Princess Spring, please come out.
Hearing his voice, Princess Spring at once came out.
Oh, I'm so glad to see you.
And I'm glad to see you too, Princess. And I simply cannot stay away from you. But I also understand your love for your mother. So I've come with another proposal.
And what would that be?
Marry me. Come with me to my kingdom. Stay with me for 9 months. And the remaining 3, you stay with your mother.
Princess Spring smiled because she quite liked Sunshine's proposal. She agreed, and the wedding was held at once. After the wedding, she bid farewell to her parents, and she left with Sunshine. A few days after the wedding, Moonlo said to Terra,
My love, it is time for me to go back to my kingdom to take care of my people.
But what about me?
Darling, I've always asked you to come with me, but you never do. you do not want to leave your palace.
True. I do not wish to leave Earth. I will wait here for you. They hugged each other, and then Moonlo left. She was all alone. She decided to go for a journey into the deep woods, and there, Frost appeared. Welcome, Terra. You took a while to come out of your territory. Who are you? Sister, don't you recognize me? I am Frost. Oh well, it's been a long time. I can't expect too much of your memory. Besides, I am here to conquer you. Now, Frost. At once, Terra was covered with ice and froze. The earth is now mine. And soon, the earth was covered with ice. Moonlo was informed about this by his wise minister. He at once asked his minister to arrange for a meeting with Sunshine.
Sir, you should meet Sunshine secretly so that Frost is unaware of your meeting.
Ah, you're right.
The wise minister suggested an idea. Later, Moonlo moved the moon and placed it right in between the sun and the earth. This caused an eclipse. Moonlo met Sunshine and Princess Spring midway and explained everything to them. Sunshine was furious.
I will melt Frost with my heat.
Moonlo nodded and moved out of the way. Sunshine unleashed his fury upon Frost, and soon all the ice started to melt. What is happening? The rays of the sun were too powerful. She at once understood that it was Sunshine. All right, stop.
I am not going to stop until you set Terra free.
I will, but I have a condition.
Either you set her free, or I will melt you completely. There are no conditions.
Fine, go ahead. Melting me will cause great floods all over the earth, and it will take you ages to fix. Sunshine was stunned.
She is right. Ask her what her condition is.
Sunshine fumed in anger. I will leave for now, but every year, when Princess Spring returns to you, I want my reign on Earth for all the 9 months.
That is absurd. 9 months of cold temperature will harm the earth. What would be even left for me to give to it when I return?
Okay, fine. 7 months then.
Where do you think our newborn son Monsoon is going to be for his adventures? We've decided to send him to his grandmother's palace every year for 3 months so that he can learn about the earth and shower his rain upon it.
Oh, come on now. Another baby?
This baby is the son of Sunshine and Princess Spring.
Okay, fine. 4 months, and that is it.
2 months.
Stop, both of you. While you're bickering, my mother is still frozen like a statue. 3 months. You get 3 months every year. Take it or leave it.
Okay, fine. I will see you all next year. And with that, she disappeared. Princess Spring at once reached Earth, and Earth looked beautiful. The ice melted off of Terra, and she was free once again.
Mother, I have given birth to a son. He is going to be the giant of rains. We have named him Monsoon, and he will come to visit you every year for 3 months.
Oh, how wonderful! I am so happy, my child. And so every year, Princess Spring would come for 3 months to visit Terra, and the earth blossomed. Then Sunshine would come to take Spring back, and with him came summer on Earth. Then Monsoon would come to visit and stay for 3 months with rains. Then when he left, Frost would come, bringing winter with her for the last 3 months of the year. And as for Terra, she embraced all the seasons with love, and together, under her, the earth flourished. The end. The Little Mermaid. A long time ago, there was a city under the sea named Atlantis. King Orin ruled and had one daughter. She was pretty. Not only was she beautiful, but the Little Mermaid could sing beautifully. Mermaids were not allowed to go up to the surface to see the world of humans until they were 20 years old. Each year, the Little Mermaid would plead with her father to be allowed to travel to the water's surface.
Be patient, little one. Your turn will come.
At long last, it was the Little Mermaid's 20th birthday. Towards the end of the day, her father turned to her and said,
The time has come, my sweet child. Go to the surface of the sea and come back to tell us what you find. But be safe and stay away from humans.
The Little Mermaid kissed her father, said goodbye, and began the long swim upwards to the surface. It was nighttime before she arrived at her destination. She saw a ship lit by hundreds of glowing lanterns. So she swam closer to the ship. And upon hearing strange and wonderful music, she just had to find out how these sounds were made. Looking through a window in the side of the ship, she saw what appeared to be a birthday party going on the ship's lower floor. And it seemed that it was for a young prince. He was the most handsome creature that the mermaid had ever seen, and it didn't take much for the gullible young maiden to fall in love. After a while,
It's getting late. I must head home.
she was about to dive, but suddenly there was a strange sound which she had never heard before. A storm. The prince's ship started to lurch and roll in the churning sea, and there were screams of terror as the sailors tried to save their ship from the giant waves. Then swiftly, the ship rammed on the sea stone and broke in two. Many lives were thrown into the sea along with the prince. The Little Mermaid knew that humans could not survive underwater.
No, I will not let my love drown.
So she carried Prince back up to land, where she tended to his wounds throughout the night. The prince was unconscious upon arrival to the sea's shore. So the mermaid laid the sleeping prince on the sand in front of a small church and cried for help. Then she swam to some nearby rocks to see if someone would come to his aid. The prince opened his eyes and saw a girl coming out of the church. When the girl saw him, she quickly ran back into the church to fetch some help. People came running. The prince was picked up and gently carried away. The Little Mermaid then swam back to her home. For days, she sat sadly by herself. But the Little Mermaid could not forget the prince. So she devised a foolish plan to swim off and be with the stranger whom she had given her heart to. The next day, the Little Mermaid called for their royal advisor, Sebastian the Crab. He soon came to see the Little Mermaid and said,
Princess, how can I help you?
Take me to Ursula, the sea witch.
Sebastian yelped in surprise and exclaimed,
Don't you know who she is? She is an evil witch. Why?
Then she told Sebastian the whole story of the storm, along with her plan to be with the prince. After a brief argument, Sebastian foolishly agreed to take her to Ursula. The sea witch lived in the darkest, coldest part of the ocean, and her house, which was made from the bones of drowned sailors, was guarded by poisonous water snakes. As the Little Mermaid and Sebastian enter Ursula's lair, the sea witch stood in front of her crystal ball, gazing into it and smiling fiendishly.
Ursula, I have come to...
Oh, my sweet little princess, I know why you have come. You want to marry a prince whom you've never met. You wish to lose your fish's tail. Fear not. I've got a potion which won't fail.
So, you can help me?
My sweet child, that's what I do. It's what I live for. I can vanish your tail, but it will hurt too.
Just tell me what I have to do.
Ursula snatched a dark-hued potion from her pantry with her tentacles. With this potion, you will be in two-legged motion.
Give me the potion.
Ursula smiled eerily and said, No. To get the potion, I have one condition. Nothing comes for free. First, you pay me.
But I have nothing. I'm only a princess with unlimited wealth. How can I pay?
Your beautiful voice is what I need. Then you will be human indeed. Only 3 days you have. Remember this. The prince should fall for you and give you a kiss. Once you get your kiss, you will always be human, enjoying bliss. But if you fail to follow my tone, you will be sea foam.
Very well. If that is what I must pay.
The witch handed the little mermaid the potion, and her voice left her. The next day, the prince's servants found a beautiful young woman lying on the beach near the palace. They helped her inside, and when she walked, she seemed to be in great pain, as if she were walking on knives. The servants dressed her in fine clothes, and the prince came to see her.
You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. What's your name?
But she kept her silence, as this was the little mermaid. Although she didn't speak, she quickly became the prince's favorite. He never went anywhere without the little mermaid at his side. Before long, the prince told her how much he cared for her, and she thought her heart would burst.
But I can't marry you because I'm still searching for my true love.
He explained about the storm and a beautiful girl rescuing him, and how, after only getting a glimpse of her, had fallen in love with her, deciding that if he ever found her, he would marry her. The little mermaid was very sad, for she couldn't tell the prince that she was that girl, that she had given up everything, her tail, her voice, her family, just to be with him. On the second day, a king from another land visited the prince. The king brought with him his beautiful daughter, and when the prince saw the king's daughter, he recognized her. This was the girl who had found him on the beach. So he asked her to marry him, and she agreed. On the third day, the little mermaid thought her heart would break, for it was the same day her prince would marry the other princess. And when the sun set, she would die, just like she had agreed to with the sea witch. The wedding was to be held on the ship, so with a heavy heart, she attends, just so she can see the prince one last time. Earlier that day, the little mermaid's parents visited Ursula and threatened her. The cruel sea witch gave them a knife, explaining that if their daughter would plunge that knife into the heart of the prince, her spell would be broken. As the marriage was well underway, she went on the ship's deck to cry, and there she saw her father and mother came upon water. They were sad.
What have you done, my child?
Her mother was crying.
Quick, you can still save yourself. The witch has given us this magic dagger. Kill the prince, for when his blood splashes on your feet, it will grow into a tail. and you will become a mermaid again. Hurry, the sun is nearly rising.
After her parents left, she ran towards the prince with the knife. She looked at him as he was happy beside his new wife. One blow with the knife, and then she would be free. She looked at the sharp dagger, then at the prince. She still loved him, so she went to the deck again and threw the knife far out into the sea. In the morning, the prince ordered his servants to search high and low, but no sign of the little mermaid was ever found. The prince was very sad and would often sit on the beach late at night, missing his little friend. And sometimes he would look at the bubbles on the water shining in the moonlight and was almost certain that he could see her face. The end. The Magic Bell. Once upon a time, in a small village, lived a poor boy named Pooh. He lived with his mother and younger brother. Pooh lived in a small hut which stood right in the center of the village. To earn a livelihood for his family, he used to graze cattle with some of his friends near the mountains, and in the evening returned them to their respective owners. Every day, while the cattle went for grazing, he loved to sit under a tree and play melodious tunes on his wooden flute.
Hey, Pooh, why do you always play your flute at this very spot?
I don't know. I love this tree, and you may think I'm crazy, but I feel like this tree is alive and listens to my music.
Oh, you're right.
What? You think so too?
No, I meant you're right that I think you're crazy.
But Pooh was right. The tree did listen to his music. The music had touched the tree's spirit. It would listen to the tune intently and be happy to have Pooh play it every day. One day, as Pooh was slumbering on one of the branches of the tree, there was a terrible noise beneath him.
Ah, what's that? Oh, earthquake! Earthquake!
There was a woodcutter cutting the same tree where Pooh was sleeping.
Who is this man?
Phew, this'll take some time.
Pooh soon understood what was going on and quickly climbs downward.
Hey, what are you doing? Why are you cutting this tree?
My master would like to use it for his boat. This tree is very strong.
No, you can't cut it.
Really? And why is that? Listen, I've spent many days trying to find strong support for the boat, and you don't own this tree, so don't waste my time.
Pooh will soon have to do something to save the tree, or it will be too late. So he used his cleverness to try and scare the woodcutter away. He said,
Well, you can't say I didn't warn you. It's bound to happen, I suppose.
What's that supposed to mean?
Don't you know? A spirit of an old witch lives in this tree. She's been staying here for years. If you cut this tree down, she'll latch herself onto you, of course.
Latch? Latch on to me?
Why? Isn't it obvious? Since you're the one cutting down this tree?
Are you trying to fool me? I'm smarter than you think, boy. I'm not going to fall for this story. Go away now.
Pooh was desperate to save this tree. As soon as the woodcutter got busy, Pooh climbed up and went straight to the top. He hid in the dense leaves and began to scream.
Ah! Ha ha! How dare you touch my home!
What? Who is that?
If you destroy my home, I will come to live with you, and I will never leave you, human.
The boy was right.
Don't worry, human. We will be good friends.
The woodcutter began to run as fast as he could.
What's the hurry, my friend?
Just as Pooh was laughing at the woodcutter, the tree came to life.
Pooh!
Pooh was shocked to hear someone talking to him.
Are you really the spirit of an old witch?
No, Pooh. I am not an old witch spirit. I mean, I am old, but I am the spirit of this tree. Your music brought me to life. You are a cunning boy, Pooh, and I am grateful to you. You saved me from the woodcut.
Suddenly, a nice golden bell appeared in front of Pooh, which was floating in mid-air.
Here, accept this as a thank you gift.
A bell?
Not just an ordinary bell, my dear. This is a magical bell. Every time you ring it, the plate will magically fill with delicious food to eat.
Oh, wow! This'll really help me and my family.
Yes, it will, but remember, Pooh, you can only ring this bell once in a day.
I will remember that. Thank you, dear tree.
Pooh ran to call his mother and brother in the village.
Mom! Ronnie! Come here and look what I've got!
He shared the incident with them. They were very happy to see the magic bell. They wished for their favorite foods, rang the bell, and ate to their heart's content. Afterwards, they went to bed with their tummies full after a long and delicious meal. The next morning, as usual, Pooh took the cattle out to graze on the pasture, leaving the bell at home. When he came back in the evening, tired and hungry, he found all the pots empty. There was no food left for him to eat. Pooh was saddened and just ate the leftovers that he found in a cupboard. Still being hungry after his meager meal, he went to bed. He couldn't sleep due to his tummy growling of hunger. So, he decided to take the magic bell with him the next day. When his mother and younger brother were hungry later that day, they looked for the bell. They searched the entire hut from top to bottom, but couldn't find the magic bell, which made them very sad. They thought that they had lost the bell. They had neither the bell nor food. They went to bed on empty stomachs. When Pooh returned home in the evening, he took out the magic bell from his satchel. He ordered his most favorite food. His mother and younger brother were very sad to see this. His younger brother started crying, and he said,
Brother, we're so hungry, and we kept looking for the bell. You have become so selfish. How could you?
Hearing this, Pooh realized his mistake. He regretted his decision, but he also shared with his honest thoughts.
You asked the bell to give you food, but you forgot to save some for me. I was tired and went to bed hungry, and it hurt my feelings, so I was sad and angry.
His brother and mother also realized their mistakes. They ate their meal together as a family that night, and from that day onwards, they never slept with empty stomachs and lived happily ever after. The end.
The Princess and the Pea. There was once a prince who wanted to get married. Being a prince, of course he had to marry a princess. But he had been brought up by his mother, the queen, to be very particular. She must be a real princess, he insisted. Nothing less would do. There were no princes in his own kingdom, so he traveled all over the world searching for one. But every princess who was introduced to him seemed to have some fault. Either her feet were too big, or her nose was too long, or her voice was too squeaky. He just couldn't find a real princess anywhere. So he returned to his kingdom very disappointed and thinking he would have to give up the idea of marrying altogether. One night, soon after he got back, the rain began to fall in torrents, and lightning and thunder shook the sky. Everyone was crouched around their fires, listening to the wind, when a knock was heard at the palace gate. The old king put on his boots and went to open it. There, standing in the rain, was a princess. But what a sight she looked! Her golden hair stuck to her graceful neck, and the rain was running out of her silk shoes. Yet she said she was a real princess. She said she was on her way home to her own country from a visit to a neighboring kingdom when she was caught by the rain.
We'll soon see about that,
thought the queen. When the princess was brought inside and introduced to everyone.
That's the most unlikely story I have ever heard. No real princess could ever look so bedraggled.
Guarding against being washed, the cunning old queen thereupon took a dried pea from a kitchen jar, went cautiously up to the guest room, and put it in the center of the prince's bed. Next, she smuggled 20 mattresses out of the linen closet and laid them one after another on top of the pea. You never saw such an assortment of mattresses. They were all of the finest quality, of course, in this, as in all else, only the best would have found a place in the fussy queen's household. So out came a mattress of goose feathers, stitched into quilted pale pink satin, another of lustrous purple silk enfolding the fleeciest lamb's wool, a third of the purest white muslin encasing a billow of swan's down. There were strip mattresses, sprig mattresses, brocade, linen and lawn mattresses, and yet to come were mattresses of the supplest cloth of gold interwoven with the royal initials and the royal coat of arms. Finally, the queen topped off all these accumulated layers with 20 feather quilts.
There,
she murmured at last, huffing and puffing a bit by now after so much unwanted effort.
Now we will see whether she is a real princess or not.
In the morning, the princess came down to breakfast, looking very tired.
My dear, did you sleep well?
Asked the old queen.
No, I didn't.
Replied the princess.
I don't know what was in the bed. Something as hard as a rock and as big as a cannonball. In fact, I think it was a cannonball. I'm bruised black and blue all over.
Then everyone smiled with delight, for now they knew that she was a real princess. No one else could have such delicate skin. The prince immediately took her for his wife. As for the pea, it was taken out of the bed and put in the royal museum, where it probably remains to this day.
The Snow Queen. Gerda was a young girl who lived with her grandma. Her fiancé lived next door. His name was Kay. Between Gerda's house and Kay's, there was a small walkway. Gerda and Kay planted red roses there as a symbol of their eternal love. They always talked about getting married. Then, on winter's day, they were sitting beside their rose bush when Gerda's grandma cried,
Look, the Snow Queen is gathering her flakes.
Gerda and Kay rushed to the window. Kay looked at the Snow Queen through the window and stuck out his tongue.
Don't do that, Kay. What if she sees you? She might come after you.
Then he climbed through the window and back to his bedroom, which was in his house, which was right next to Gerda's house. That night, Kay was getting ready for bed. He walks towards his window and peers out. He spots a unique-looking snowflake and finds that it's rapidly growing larger and larger until it became the Snow Queen. She held in her hand a plate of sweets, called Turkish Delights. Kay couldn't resist. He snatched a handful from the plate. As he shoved them greedily into his mouth, the lady grabbed his wrist and pulled him out of the window and onto her sled. Her team of horses suddenly took off. Kay should have been very frightened, but the sweets had dulled his sense of discernment and alarm. The next morning, when Gerda came to visit Kay, he wasn't there. She looked everywhere for him. She raced down to the village square, and she cried, "Have you seen Kay? Have you seen my Kay?" But no one had seen him. Nobody knew where he had gone.
Don't let my Kay be dead. Please don't let my Kay be dead. I don't believe he is.
Gerda looked up, and there sat a little sparrow.
When we're searching for the food we set high on the rooftops, we see everything. We would have seen him, unless he fell in the river. I'll go and ask the river fairy.
A tiny spark of hope lit up in Gerda's heart.
If he drowned, the river fairy will know.
So she went near the river and shouted,
River, river, did my Kay come by here? Did he fall in your deep waters and drown?
And the river fairy came up from the water with a sweet smile on her face and said, "Oh, my sweet child, no, your Kay didn't come down here. Now don't cry.
Where is he then?"
I wish I knew. But there is an old witch who lives beside my shore. She might be generous to you, but you have to be cautious about her.
I will do anything for my love. Can you please take me there?
Why not? Just hop in that little boat. My streams will lead you to the witch's cottage. The river fairy then disappeared, and Gerda hopped into the boat. The little boat floated on, with the current getting faster and faster. Then Gerda saw a small cottage. An old lady came hobbling outside. She was bent over and carrying a walking stick. The old woman walked to the edge of the river, caught the boat with her walking stick, and drew it into the land. She helped Gerda out. Although Gerda was afraid of this strange old witch, she was totally determined to find Kay again.
Come and tell me who you are.
Gerda told her everything.
Have you seen my Kay?
No, but perhaps he might come by.
They went inside the cottage. There was a bowl of beautiful cherries on the table.
Don't be sad now, Gerda. Your love will find a way to you. Now, eat those cherries.
While Gerda was eating, the old woman combed her long hair with a golden comb. As she combed, she whispered,
I have longed for a granddaughter like you.
Gerda forgot about Kay because the old woman had cast a spell on her through the magic comb. The old witch wanted to keep Gerda as her own. After a while, Gerda murmured,
I will stay here forever.
But one day, while in the garden, Gerda noticed the red roses. They reminded her of Kay. The memory of Kay broke the old woman's spell, and Gerda raced to the garden gate. She ran till she could run no longer and stopped at the stone bridge. Suddenly, she was surrounded by trolls. Trolls rushed forward, seizing Gerda.
She is fat and pretty, and she has been fed on nuts and honey. How nice she will taste!
She shall play with me. She shall give me her muff and her pretty dress.
The little girl troll, who was about the same age as Gerda, wore a mournful look on her face. She clasped little Gerda around the waist and said,
They shall not kill you. I will protect you.
All the trolls laughed and agreed to give Gerda the little troll. Gerda explained her story to her, how fond she was of Kay, how she must find him. After they ate and drank, they were walking below the stone bridge. Above them, more than 100 pigeons, who pretended to be asleep, watched and listened to them.
We have seen Kay
Where?
in the carriage of the Snow Queen.
Where were they going?
Lapland! The Snow Queen has a castle there!
Little Girl Troll looked serious, nodded her head, and said,
I'll help you to get your love.
The little girl troll went near to her pet, the reindeer, squinted her eyes, and said,
I will untie your cord. You shall run fast and carry this sweet girl to the castle of the Snow Queen. Help her find her Kay.
Then the little troll girl cut the string of the reindeer, and away Gerda and reindeer flew. He ran on until he reached the Snow Queen's castle. There he set Gerda down.
You must go on alone from here. I will be here when you come back. I will make sure you and your love will get home safely.
Gerda walks there, outside the tall ice castle of the Snow Queen. She was suddenly surrounded by thousands of snowflakes that fluttered about her. They were the Snow Queen's guards. Gerda prayed. The cold was so great, she could see her own breath. It poured like steam from her mouth. As she continued to pray, the steam appeared to increase until it took the shape of little angels. By the time Gerda had finished her prayers, a whole legion stood around her. They attacked snowflakes, and the battle began. Gerda hastened onward to the Snow Queen's castle, and she found Kay deep within its icy walls.
Kay, my Kay, I have found you at last.
Kay was almost frosted over and blue from head to toe, for he had become so addicted to Turkish delight, he no longer felt anything else at all. All this time, the Snow Queen had fed him that sweet, sinister, and powerful spell. Gerda hugged him and wept hot tears that fell on his chest and penetrated his heart. They melted the ice, which had become Kay's heart. Warmth returned to his body. He recognized Gerda and cried joyfully.
Gerda, where have you been all this time?
Kay, I was looking for you, my love. I found you at last.
They clung together, laughing and weeping for joy. The loyal reindeer was waiting for them. Upon seeing them approach, he knelt down and allowed them to climb upon his back. They flew home with joy and gratitude dancing in their eyes. Soon after, they got married and lived happily ever after. The end. The Happy Prince. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded from head to toe with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. One night, a little swallow flew over the city. She was tired and wished to spend the night between the feet of the Happy Prince. As she was just about to fall asleep, a large drop of water fell on her. She was curious as there were no clouds in the sky. Then another drop of water fell on her. The swallow decided to look for another place to sleep. Just then, a third drop fell. She looked up and saw that these were the tears from the eyes of the Happy Prince. The swallow, filled with compassion, asked,
Who are you? And why are you crying?
I used to be a human and lived in a grand palace. While I was kind, humble of heart, there was no sorrow within my kingdom, and my courtiers called me the Happy Prince. After my death, I had been set up on a high pillar. My heart is made of lead, and yet it always weeps when I see the ugliness and the misery of my city now.
You poor thing. So, why are you crying now?
Far away in a little cottage, the little boy of a seamstress is sick. He's crying because his mother could not give him anything to eat, because she is very poor. And all she has to offer the small lad is water from a nearby river. But the little one's stomach craves food.
Then, how can you help them from here?
Take the ruby from my sword hilt and give it to the poor woman.
The little swallow obeyed the prince, and then flew to the seamstress's cottage and laid the ruby on her table. She also fluttered over the poor sick boy to give him relief from his fever. As she flew away, the poor mother awoke to find the sparkling ruby resting by her hand. Both of them felt truly happy. When the swallow returned, the prince said,
I can see a writer. He is suffering from the cold and is apparently very hungry. Still, he is writing the story because he will not get anything if he leaves his book unfinished. Dear Swallow, will you please give him the sapphire gem from one of my eyes?
No, my prince, I cannot do that.
It is my order, dear Swallow.
The swallow did not want to pluck out the sapphire from his eye, but she obeyed the generous prince reluctantly. So the swallow, once again, flew into the life of another unfortunate soul, even if it was only for a moment, and laid the sapphire upon the writer's desk. She saw that the writer had fallen unconscious due to the cold and suffering from hunger. So she gathered some wood and lit a fire within the man's fireplace. As she flew away from there, the writer felt the warmth of the blaze and slowly awoke. He saw the sparkling sapphire on his desk, and with immense joy and gratitude, thanked God for providing it. Upon the return of the tiny swallow, the prince said,
I have seen a little match girl whose wares have fallen into the gutter. She is very afraid and quivers with fear, knowing that her father would beat her hard if she returned home empty-handed.
You have nothing left on you to give her, sire.
Dear Swallow, I still have my other eye left. Please give it to that little match girl.
Never, my prince. I cannot do that. For then you would be blind. If I took the other sapphire from you.
I beg of you, dear Swallow, it is the last time I can help someone. After this quest, I will bother you no more, and you can leave me be and continue on your journey.
At his command, the swallow very unwillingly plucked out the sapphire of the other eye of the happy prince, who now was totally blind. The swallow made her final mission for the self-sacrificing statue, and silently slipped the sapphire into the palm of the young match girl, and returned to the prince, saying,
I am not going anywhere, my prince. I will stay here with you till my last breath. From this day forth, I shall be your eyes.
Now, the swallow reported daily to the now meager-looking statue of the sufferings of the people. At the command of the happy prince, the swallow took off the golden leaves from the statue and distributed them among the poor people to give them wealth, so they could each afford a better life. Now, the statue was dull and gray, as there was no gold left on him. Soon winter came, and the frost made the swallow colder and colder, so cold that she was about to die. She flew to the happy prince and kissed him on his forehead,
This is the final farewell that I shall bid you, my prince.
Oh, you have finally decided to continue your journey, my little friend. I am happy for you. Farewell, my little friend. Farewell.
No, prince. I am journeying to my death. My death is certain, as I decided to stay with you that day. But I have no regrets about it, for I am at peace and content.
The swallow fluttered haphazardly downward to die at the feet of the statue that she had come to admire and love. The prince cried for an immeasurable length of time, and the lead heart which beat within his now gray form broke in two. The mayor ordered that the statue should be pulled down because it was neither beautiful nor useful. But the broken heart did not melt in the furnace, so it was thrown away and came to rest on top of a trash heap where the poor swallow lay, dead. Upon seeing this, God determined to put his angels that he had created to a test. So he said to them,
Bring me the two most precious things upon the earth that I have created.
Yes, Lord. The heavenly beings came upon the same dust heap where the dead swallow and the happy prince's heart now resided, a lowly trash heap. And the angels picked them up instantly. O Father of the heavenly lights, these are the two most precious things we found upon your earth. God praised the angel's choice in bringing him the lead heart of the happy prince and the deceased swallow.
Now the swallow will stay here in my garden, and the prince will also stay here and enjoy the beauties of my heaven.
Now, whenever Swallow and the happy prince see suffering upon the earth, their teardrops fall from the sky and rain breaks forth from the clouds. The end. The Little Tin Soldier. Once upon a time, a toy maker fashioned 25 soldiers from a piece of tin. They all carried muskets, they all looked straight ahead, and they all wore splendid uniforms of red and blue. At last, when it came to the last soldiers that were made, there wasn't quite enough tin. The toy maker only had enough to give the soldier one leg. But that soldier didn't mind. He was very proud to be different. He was very proud of his one leg. He stood erect, carrying his musket, looking straight ahead in his bright red and blue uniform. The toy maker placed all 25 soldiers tightly into a box. Then he carefully gift-wrapped the box. They were a birthday present for a small boy named Jojo. When the little boy saw the box, he let out an excited yell.
Ah, tin soldiers! Thanks, Mommy!
Jojo emptied the soldiers out on the floor and selected the last tin soldier for the duty of captain, because he was different, and that made him special. Jojo placed him on top of the cupboard beside the toy hippo, where the soldiers could see a brown teddy bear, a slinky dog, an astronaut, a box labeled Jack, a magnificent castle with a swan floating on a lake, and, standing at the castle door, was the most beautiful girl the soldier had ever seen. He fell in love with her because, like him, she only had one leg.
I have never seen anyone so beautiful.
Lucy? Yeah, she is. She is always on one foot. She is a determined ballerina.
Oh, I am sorry. I did not mean to be rude. I didn't realize I was talking out loud.
Oh, you are a really good soldier, humble and respectful.
I am honored, sir. Thank you.
Oh, one more thing, since you're here, you should know. Jack in the Box toy is tricky and mean.
Thank you for your kind advice, Mr. Hippo.
That's all he said to Mr. Hippo. And then he said to himself,
I shall make her my wife.
But what the soldier didn't realize was that the beautiful lady was a ballerina, and these types of dancers held their other leg high in the air to dance. And that's why he could see only her one leg from his position. Every evening at midnight, when the clock struck 12, all the toys would come alive and they would play. The little tin soldier was determined that at that time he would visit the castle and ask for the beautiful lady's hand in marriage. But another thing which he was unaware of was that the Jack in the box was also desiring the ballerina as a wife for himself. At the stroke of midnight, he began to hop in the direction of the castle. Firstly, he jumped from the cupboard, and with many hurdles, he finally climbed the table to reach near the castle. Suddenly, the lid of the Jack-in-the-Box popped open, and a frightening and hideous face jumped out and stared down at the little tin soldier.
I'm Jack. She's out of your league, soldier boy. And anyway, you only got one leg.
There was a moment of silence between them.
You live in a box. She lives in a castle. Give up.
The little tin soldier looked up at the castle. The beautiful dancer had been watching him. She smiled. He started bouncing towards the castle.
Tin soldier!
Jack practically spat the words out with a fury in his eyes.
Don't wish for something that doesn't belong to you.
The tin soldier ignored Jack's ominous voice.
Very well. Wait until tomorrow. Bad things will happen. An ill wind will carry you away.
And with a fiendish laugh, he disappeared back inside his box.
I wouldn't take any notice of Jack.
The little tin soldier glanced towards the castle and the beautiful lady. He lay down beside the lake, watching the Lucy. Finally, he drifted off to sleep. From there, the soldier could survey the whole room, and the lovely Lucy was smiling at him. So he smiled back. But he can't see Jack's box. Suddenly, a gust of wind caught the curtain. It flipped the little tin soldier backward out of the open window. While he was falling, Jack's words tumbled through his mind.
An ill wind will carry you away.
And he heard Jack's fiendish laugh in the wind. The little tin soldier landed on the pavement. Then, heavy drops of rain started to fall. It wasn't long before water was pouring down the gutter beside him.
What bad thing is going to happen to me next?
He said to himself. As if in answer, two boys came running down the street. They thought it would be fun to send a little tin soldier out to sea for an exploration. They quickly made a small sailboat out of an old newspaper and placed him inside. They sent a boat sailing down the gutter. The little tin soldier shouldered his musket. He wondered,
Will I ever see my beautiful dancer again?
Large waves rocked the boat up and down. Suddenly, the boat dipped down and rushed into a drain. The little tin soldier trembled. He held on to his musket tightly.
What on earth is happening? I bet Jack is behind this.
Inside the drain, it was very dark. In the distance, he saw what looked like the headlights of a car. As the boat floated closer, the soldier realized that the two lamps were in fact eyes. The eyes of a huge, ugly water rat. It was the Border Patrol. He cried,
Passport!
The tin soldier remained silent. The water rat's hand reached out to make a grab for his passport, but the little tin soldier was too quick. He crashed his boat through the straw barrier and sped away. The rat gave chase. He screamed,
Stop him! Stop him! He hasn't paid me his toll! He hasn't got a pass!
But the roaring water surged on. The little tin soldier could already see daylight ahead.
Freedom! Freedom! I might still get home to see her smile once more.
As the little boat rushed towards the daylight, the soldier heard a noise. It was a waterfall. The little boat shot out into the air. Way below was a canal.
Not again.
Although he was frightened, he refused to close his eyes. The boat spun and swirled and crashed onto the surface of the water and finally drowned. The soldier was thrown into the thunderous water and everything went dark. He had been swallowed by a fish. As the soldier lay in the fish tummy for several hours, a flash of lightning struck. Then he heard a voice which he recognized.
Oh my goodness, it's the little one-legged soldier!
The fish that had swallowed him had been hooked, taken to the market, and sold to Jojo's mother. When she sliced it open, she found the little tin soldier. She carefully dried the soldier and then put him in the castle next to the beautiful dancer and left. The soldier sees her smile and his heart melted. He bowed down to ask her for marriage and sees her other leg. He got disappointed because he thought she could never say yes. But suddenly, he heard a soft voice.
You are Captain Tin, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to say something.
Please, go ahead, ma'am.
I love you since I saw you on that cupboard. Will you marry me?
Little Tin Man was surprised, and he quickly said yes. But then the clock chimed midnight. Jack came out from his box. He was looking furious as rage filled his eyes. He quickly drew a sword from his box and said,
I told you not to wish for what doesn't belong to you. Lucy is mine. Prepare to die.
Little Tin Soldier rose up and put forward his musket, which had a bayonet. They started fighting in front of the castle, and suddenly, Little Tin Soldier put his bayonet in Jack's box and swung him back towards the burning stove. With a loud scream, Jack fell into the burning stove, and he burnt to his death. Little Tin Soldier and Lucy hugged each other, and they went straight to the palace to live. Then they lived happily ever after. The end. The Tale of Tom Thumb. Once, there was a very old beggar was wandering through the densely wooded forest. One day, when his feet were very sore, he knocked on the door of a one-eyed orc named Gogo and begged for a bite to eat. The orc, Gogo, and his wife, Gigi, welcomed the stranger into their cave. While his wife put some bread on a small plate, they realized that their guest was none other than Merlin, the greatest and most skillful wizard of all the realms.
Oh, great Merlin, please accept our humble assistance. You both are very humble and generous. I am well pleased. Therefore, I wish to offer you anything you desire.
He snapped his fingers twice, and then bubbles appeared above his head with images in them.
Ah, skadoosh! Shiny heaps of gold, sparkling diamond mines. Tell me, what do you wish for?
Oh, I should be the happiest creature in the world if I had a son. Even if he was no bigger than my husband's thumb, I would be satisfied.
Gigi gazed at her thumb in wistful longing. Merlin was so amused with the idea of an orc boy no bigger than a thumb that he decided to grant the poor woman's wish. And poof! There came a sweet little orc boy holding Gigi's thumb. The new orc parents felt utter happiness, and they thanked Merlin countless times. Soon after, the wizard departed from his humble host's dwelling. Tom never grew any larger than his father's thumb. That's why everyone called him Tom Thumb. Gogo and Gigi never let their very tiny son disappear from their sight for fear of losing him. They crafted a small toy house for him to live in. And as he got older, he became a very cunning and clever lad. One day, Gogo was getting ready to go into the forest to cut wood. He said to himself,
I wish I had someone to drive the cart to me.
Father, I can bring the cart all by myself.
Gogo laughed, and he answered,
Well, let's at least try.
When the time came, Tom asked his mother to harness the horse to the cart, and then he sat in the horse's ear and gave him directions. So the horse went the correct way through the densely wooded forest. It happened that, as they turned a corner, Tom was calling out,
Gently, gently.
Two humans responded to his cry of distress. One of them saw the horse and heard the voice, but couldn't see the rider.
What an odd thing that is. There goes a cart, and the rider is talking to the horse. But still, the rider is not to be seen.
They started to follow the cart out of curiosity, wondering what sort of strange magic this was. The cart drove directly into the forest, and exactly to the place where Gogo was working. Then Tom, seeing his father, called out to him,
Do you see, Dad? I have arrived with the cart.
Gogo took his son and put the boy onto his shoulder. The two strangers were looking upward all this time and did not know what to say, as they were simply flabbergasted. Then one of them rattled the other by the shoulders, saying with greedy excitement,
We must steal the little orc. He would make our fortune. People from all over would pay to see a little freak like him. We'd be rich, rich, I tell you.
So, they hastily disguised themselves by covering with branches and leaves. When Gogo was taking a shortcut through the woods, they gingerly grabbed Tom by putting a hand over his tiny mouth and swiftly stuffing him inside their satchel. And just like that, they slipped away, cloaked in the shadows of the tall pines of the forest.
Help, Dad! Help me!
Tom was shouting, but no one could hear him. The two strange kidnappers journeyed onward till dusk had begun to fall, and Tom requested with urgency in his voice,
Will you please set me down? I need to go to the bathroom.
Don't you fool us, piggy boy. We know you just want to escape and run away, right?
No, sir. But if you doubt me, then I suggest you tie me with a thread.
They agreed to bind the boy in a thread. With one end tied to Tom and the other tied to the human's hand, they released him and allowed him to relieve himself. Tom nimbly slipped into a mouse hole and cut the thread with his strong teeth. The men stuck their sticks into the hole, but it was all in vain because Tom crept still farther into the hole. As it became darker and darker, they were forced to give up in frustration. After a while, when Tom realized that his kidnappers were gone, he crept out of the hole. As he was walking, he heard two goblins chatting together about how to rob his father, Gogo. He then came out from the shell and disrupted their scheming with cunning cleverness.
I could tell you how. I can slip through the door of the cave, then into the safe, and I can get you as much gold as you want. What do you say?
And why would you help us out like that? What's in it for you, you little thing?
I would get my fair share of the loot, of course.
Yeah, why not? Let's go then.
Goblin carries Tom atop his head, and off they went. As they approached Gogo's cave, Tom slipped through a tiny little crack in the cave and opened the door for them by pulling a small lever that his father had specially made for Tom. The two goblins entered the cave, their eyes gleaming with the glitter of greediness. They double-checked to make sure that the orc couple were sleeping and proceeded to stealthily traverse to the treasury room. As the goblins began to selfishly stuff gold into their satchel, Tom closed the treasure room door by pulling yet another lever, trapping them inside. He called out,
Dad! Dad, come here! I have captured robbers!
Both Gogo and Gigi wake up, with a smile dancing across their faces as they hear their son and run towards the sound of his sweet voice.
My little Tom has returned.
The whole family cried tears of gratitude and joy at the reunion of their family, as well as the safety of their belongings. Gigi then picked up her son Tom and kissed him. Soon, they heard the whispering of the two would-have-been thieving goblins from the treasure room.
Hey, tomboy, come on, open the door. Your share of the treasure is here, just waiting for you. Tom? You there? Can you hear me now?
The whole orc family laughed at their intruder's predicament. And then Gogo went to teach them a lesson and beat them good and hard. Soon, Tom could hear the goblins crying for mercy and in fear of their lives. When Gogo finally emerged from out of the treasury room, two goblins were swinging upside down in his tightly fisted grasp. And Tom felt so very proud to be the son of such awe-inspiring parents.
From now on, we will treat you as the orc treat another. I am proud of you, my son.
The end.
Rumpelstiltskin. There was once a miller who was poorer than most, but he had a beautiful daughter. The girl was the apple of his eye, and her father boasted that she was lovely enough to be a queen. One day, the king rode by. He noticed the girl by the stream washing linen.
How beautiful she is!
The king thought to himself. Aloud he said,
What is your name?
Before the girl could answer, her father replied,
If you please, sire, that is my daughter. A finer girl you'll never see.
The king looked down at them both with interest from his beautiful dappled grey horse.
Indeed, she has a lovely face.
He replied. The miller's heart swelled with pride.
To be sure. But there is more to her than her face.
He said.
What do you mean, miller?
The king asked curiously.
She can, she can...
The miller tried desperately to think of something that would impress the king. His eyes met the king's, and he looked down at his feet. He watched the chickens scratch around in the yellow straw looking for grain.
I think she can spin the straw into gold.
He exclaimed with a look of immense triumph. But father, his daughter broke in, dismayed at these untrue words.
A rare girl indeed.
The king said and smiled.
If your fingers can really turn straw into gold, then your place is in my castle. Come with me, and I'll see if it is true.
The girl had no choice but to obey her king, and together they rode to his castle. When they arrived there, he led her to a high dark room that was filled with straw. A spinning wheel stood in the center. The king said,
You have until sunrise to spin this dry straw into gold. But if you do not, and if your father has lied to me, then you must surely die.
The girl heard the bolts being drawn across the door, and she was so terrified that she started to cry. Then she noticed a little man standing in front of her.
What is the matter?
He asked. I'm so unhappy, wept the girl. The king has asked me to spin all the straw into gold by the morning, and I haven't a notion how to do it.
What will you give me if I do it for you?
The little man asked. The locket around my neck, she replied. The little man took the locket, sat himself down at the wheel, and in no time at all, the bales of straw were spun into a pile of bobbins full of rich gold thread. As soon as the sun rose, the king came, unbolted the door, and was delighted to see so much gold around him. But his privy purse was still not nearly full, and he needed a lot more gold to pay the soldiers who guarded his land from the greedy neighbors. He took the miller's daughter into a much larger room and told her to spin all the straw into gold by the next morning. That night, the girl began to cry again, for she knew her task was hopeless. But again, the little man appeared, and again he said,
What will you give me if I spin the straw into gold for you?
The belt around my waist, she said. The little man took the belt, and whirl! Round went the spinning wheel again, and bobbin after bobbin was filled with fine gold thread until there was no straw left. The king was pleased beyond measure at the sight. He knew that with just a little more gold in his treasury, he could really get the country going again. So he filled his largest room with straw and led the girl into it.
If you can spin all this away during the night,
he said,
I'll take you as my wife, and then you need never spin straw again.
When the girl was alone, the little man appeared for the third time and said,
What will you give me if I spin the straw for you again?
I have nothing left to give you, she replied.
Then promise me you will give me your firstborn child when you are the queen,
said the little man. The girl thought that a lot of things could happen before that, so she promised him whatever he demanded. When the king came in the next morning, he found heaps of gold where the straw had been.
Oh, miller's daughter, you have spun more gold for me in 3 nights than I could hope to find in 60 years. Your skill is only matched by your great beauty. Will you be my queen?
So the girl, who already loved him dearly, became his wife, and in time she gave birth to their son. She had quite forgotten her promise to the little man until one day he stepped into the room and said,
Now give me what you promised.
The queen was dismayed and begged him to take all her jewels and riches instead. He refused, but then he said,
Since you cry so bitterly at the loss of your baby, I will give you one more chance to save him. You may have 3 days in which to guess my name, and if you do, then you may keep him.
The queen stayed awake all night, trying to remember all the names she had ever heard. When the little man arrived the following day, she began with Nicholas, Timothy, Hereward, and all the other names she knew. But after each name, he called out,
No, that's not my name.
The next day, she read all the books in the royal library and memorized all the uncommon names in them. She asked, Is your name Nimrod or Noah or Marmaduke? but he always replied calmly.
That's not my name.
The third day, she sent messengers all over the country to learn what names people were calling their children. At length, one messenger came back and said,
Your Majesty, I have not been able to find any new names. But on a high hill where the foxes and hares bid each other good night, I saw a little man dancing around the fire and singing,
Oh, little things, my royal dame. Oh, little things, my royal dame. That Rumpelstiltskin, Rumpelstiltskin, Rumpelstiltskin is my name.
Imagine the queen's delight when she heard that name. But when the little man arrived that night, she asked first, Is your name Roger?
No.
Is your name Robert?
Ha ha. No, no, no.
Is it perhaps Rumpelstiltskin?
The devil it is, the devil it is.
He screamed and stamped his foot into the ground with such fury that he split into two.